Where to begin? I wanted to start, Michael, just by asking you a little bit about how you first discovered this bit of history about the Johnson County War and decided that this was a subject for a film.
It's difficult to be rational at this moment. It's taken 33 years to get here. I'm too full of conflicting emotions to be analytical and clear and film-savvy person. I'm only grateful I had this person sitting next to me who's a poet with genius. And we were on tour for a year, winter, spring, summer, and fall. And I was happy with all the time we spent together. I'm especially happy that he's here tonight. Here, finally, applause for his work. I wish all of the actors, including all of the extras, could be here. To hear your applause, because they all work so terribly hard and were committed. And as you can see, everyone was an individual, and everybody gave everything they could give, more than anybody. And over these 33 years, there were times, in all candor, that I must admit I wavered. This guy never did. Never, ever. And neither did the producer, Joanna Corelli.
Bravo!
Stand up, Joanna.
Bravo!
Two very special people with a very special attachment and feeling to this. I can't even say movie, it was more than a movie. I don't know what it was. It was like a long poem.
It's a moral and exhilarating experience.
Well, we know you can read.
And Michael, you hadn't seen the film in many, many years when you sat down to work on this restoration, is that correct?
No, I mean, the film obviously had been shown in various places in Europe. And I went to simply present it and I got to get a quick and so when Joanne approached me and Peter Becker from Criterion, my first response was, no way. There's no way I'm revisiting all that. It's too much. I just couldn't. I didn't think I could handle it emotionally. And I said to Kris, it was like the thought of revisiting Golgotha. Kind of a weird experience. But Joanne and Peter together, Criterion, persisted for 10 years. 10 whole years over these last 30 years to get permission from MGM to finally allow this to happen. guess it's a town women have uniquely. But, so I kept saying no. She kept saying yes. Peter kept saying yes. And one day, in Hollywood or LA, I found myself right next to my old office at MGM, which is now Sony, just across the street. I had an office in the Clark Gable building, which mercifully has been preserved. And it was the street that we used to audition the horses on. The beautiful stallion that Kris comes in with the buggy. And I remember bringing all these little black stallions in down the street. So going back there was like going back to high school. And I was really scared shit. But the people at Sony were so nice and so polite and so generous and so caring. They even gave me a parking spot in my old office. And they were so enthusiastic that the minute I sat down at the editing console, something else in me took over, and my hands began to work, and my brain began to work. And before I knew it, I was working on this restoration, which I swore I would not do. But then director. And the more I worked on it, the more passionate I got about it. And the more I worked on it, the more I became absolutely blown away by the commitment of people like Kris and Chris Walker and Isabelle Huppert, all of the actors, the intensity that they brought to every moment that they were on film and off film. I owe a great debt to them because they dedicated the better part of a year to this enterprise. And when we first showed it, of course, in New York, it was like we all got guillotined at the same time. And I was always especially upset at the fact that the actor's work was never recognized. You know, I felt, for some reason, I was singled out, and it was beside the story. It was beside the acting. Nobody talked about the reality of the story. Nobody talked about, was it really a part of American history, which it was. And nobody talked about performance. And when you have a cast of this size, and a movie of this size over a period of time, it's not easy for actors to sustain their energy and their passion. In fact, there's a funny moment, which I don't know if Chris is even aware of it, but he was going through a hard time at one point in his life while we were shooting. And I remember going up to his trailer. It was freezing cold in Montana. And I knocked on the door. I was standing at the little rickety steps of this aluminum trailer. And he opened the door. But the screen door stayed shut. He just looked at me. And before I said a word, he said, "It's getting cold in here." So I closed the door. And I later took that line and I gave it to Chris Walker.
at that time when I was breaking up over a personal family heartbreak,
Yeah.
he told me, use it. Apparently, he was using everything I said.
And the great thing was they went with it, and they did use it, and we all turned ourselves inside out for you, and we're just really, really happy that you finally got, this is the first time I saw it in Venice, for the first time a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and we got a standing ovation, which was wonderful. And I was still very nervous of coming here tonight, because this was the scene of the crime. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so my stomach has been in a knot all day long. I think it's now finally unraveling. But, yes, it is a true event in American history. It's, no one hopes that the audience would just relax, forget all the nonsense that's been written and said about it, and just lay back, sink into the tempo of the late 19th century, and witness a true episode in the pageant of American history. And that's what I feel has happened tonight. I'm very, very pleased about it.
I'm so glad that I got to see it tonight, because I hadn't seen it for years. But I always felt that it was a beautiful portrayal of a real ugly part of American history. It was a true story, except at the end they hung me in real life. And at the ending of this works better for my feeling that Michael was doing American history in this film, and the last part on the yacht was post-Vietnam America, and you could see it on my face then, and it was, to me, it was a neat experience to sit here and watch it tonight, because it's everything I hoped that it would be. It was a catastrophe for both of our careers. we both ended up in the dust, but I must say, but it was worth it. Wherever I went with this guy to see him perform, he would always take time out to make an introduction, and I felt a little bit like a leper being introduced to a bunch of healthy people. And but he Leopard or a leper?
A leopard with leprosy. But he and Joanne, there was never a moment of doubt. I went to the Doubt of the Damned, and find my way back. And being here tonight is part of it. It's very emotional. It's very hard to talk about it in a rational way. I was just happy to be a part of working with this poet of genius, and I mean that in a very real way. He didn't just act, he inhabited the part. He just became James Jagger. That was it. I don't even remember any special rehearsals. He was just James Apple. And once we put him in the sets, he just picked up on every detail. Everything was alive to him. And it just became the performance, it became part of the performance.
And Kris, can you talk a
Remember,
little bit about?
Vilmos Zsigmond told me, Vilmos Zsigmond is one of my heroes as well. He's the cinematographer in this film. And they told me near the end of this, he said, I think Michael's fallen in love with this picture. And that can be a dangerous business, falling in love with anything over which other people have control. I'm really, I'm so knocked out to see it again tonight and find that it lived up to your imagination, Michael, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Well, I'm so pleased you could be here and hear applause. After 33 years.
You know, 33 years, it's ironic. That's every time I said I was 33 when I was down in Peru at the time, they would tell me 33 is the age of Christ. It's a magic number.
Kris, can you just give us a little idea of sort of what it was like being on the set, shooting every day for that almost 1 year? Because the film is so intoxicating. It's, you know, everywhere the camera turns is this world. You never have the feeling of a period recreation per se. You're living it as the audience, and I'm just wondering if that was sort of the feeling being there.
I think that's exactly what everybody was doing up there. To me, it was an expression of how I was feeling deep in my soul, and I felt the same watching Kris walking tonight. It just really blew me away the way he inhabited that character, and all of the actors were so good, and I gotta blame it on the man here. He put it all together and had the imagination to create this beautiful piece, and you'll probably never get paid back for all those 33 years, but somewhere up there,
Well, I
like,
did get paid back tonight, 2 weeks ago in Venice, and having you finally hear applause for your performance. That's a long time to wait for applause.
Michael, I know when we've talked about the movie before, you've talked about having to really fight to cast Isabelle Huppert in the film. This was her first American picture.
Oh yeah, the studio absolutely did not want her. And they did everything they could to break my arm, break my leg, torture me to give her up. And I said no. He kept saying no. She's the girl.
Do you remember what you had seen her in, or you know how you got the idea to put her in the film?
Yeah, Joanne and I were casting. I think we were at the William Morris office in New York City. And Joanne, tell me if I'm wrong. And we were looking at actresses, a lot of actresses. I had looked at a lot of actresses in LA as well. And one day, casting is a very exhausting process because you try to give an actor more time than just read a line. Thank you very much. You try to spend time with them. And when you do,
Hold the microphone.
Unfortunately, they begin piling up. And at the end of the day, you're 8 hours behind the end of the day. And I just got so worn out looking at actresses. I had to take a walk around the block from wherever William Morris was, I don't remember, in New York. And I wandered into this little cinema on 60-something Street off of Madison. And there was this little French actress in the movie. I've forgotten the movie. Even. What?
Violette by Claude Chabrol.
Thank you. And I came back and I said, Joanne, I think I found the actress. And from there the battle began.
And I know you don't want to be too analytical, but I'll just throw a couple of more questions if you don't want to go there, just let me know. But one of the few people who seems to have actually been recognized for their work at the time of the film was the production designer, Tammy Larson, because he was nominated for an Oscar.
One thing that was very, very nice is that Tammy and his set decorator were both nominated for Heaven's Gate. And that means a lot to them, those craftsmen, because they feel the Oscar is almost beside the point, because everybody votes on it, whereas when the nomination process is only from the people who do the work they do. So they were very, very pleased with that. And I don't think anybody that I know of now or then could have done the job that they did.
Can you talk a little bit about working with them to create this world that we see in the film?
Oh, sure. I remember the very first, in fact, Joanne mentioned something to me about it the other night. She'd gotten this beautiful letter from Candy, which she'd forgotten she had, and she read it to me. And I said, you know what my first sight of Tammy was on location? She said, what? Well, you know where the town is, and the mountain behind it, and the church at one end. Well, when we got there, it was obviously no town. It was just it's National Park. You couldn't even touch the ground. In fact, that whole town is built on a 3-foot platform off the ground, so it wouldn't harm any plants underneath. And it was the middle of the winter. We had to fly in by helicopter. And Tamby's this jolly Danish Santa Claus. And he had on this wonderful Santa Claus hat, with a little red pom-pom on the top. And so the pilot touched down on what we thought was the hard crust of snow. There were little pine trees. Except it turned out that all the little pine trees weren't little pine trees. They were the tips of very, very tall pine trees. Tammy jumped out of the chopper and he disappeared. All I could see was a pom-pom dancing in the snow. He said, when he finally came up, he said, this is never going to work. But he made it work, and he made it work absolutely beautifully, and the park was restored to its pristine state. And I was glad we were able to get permission. And working with him was also just pure pleasure. He was so dedicated, and as Kris says, everybody was, even the extras. And I hate to call them extras because they were more than that. Right. They were all local people mostly, and they had regular jobs in sawmills and factories and local places, and many of them gave up their jobs to stay on the movie. And that was an incredible compliment. And that's why you see such a consistency. That somehow this thing took us all over. And why, I don't know, but it did. It had some sort of magic spell about it. And that's partly what made the crash in New York so devastating. because there was so much honest, hard effort on everybody's part. Hell, we even had one of the drivers in the battle drove chariot, Ben-Hur. He's an old guy with white hair. You see him tooling around there just like he's in the Roman Colosseum. And there were so many memorable moments, it's hard to recall them all now. And I'm just so damn happy Kris could be here to hear the applause. I can't tell you, it meant so much to me, means so much to me, for him to hear response to his unbelievable dedication and hard work. It's still, while I was working on it, now of course I worked on digitally, so I could do a lot of things that I couldn't do even when I first made the movie, because it was before the digital revolution. So working on the picture after the digital revolution was really exciting, because in digital you could do so many more things that you can't do without it. And you can change colors. There's no end to what you can do. And just to see it like this, all in one piece, the New York audience, the real audience, takes my breath away. I don't know what else I could say. It is based on a true episode. The president was Harrison. And most of the communiques that are read by the actors during certain scenes, including the note that Ella finds and they chant, those are the real notes and the real communiques. They're not made up for the sake of the movie. The actual wording, the letter from the governor, the backing of the president, people had gotten together and collected. There was a state of anarchy in Johnson County. And that was the most amazing thing of all is in the Wyoming Historical Society. There's a gazillion pictures of these mercenaries posing in front of the camera in those long coats, just dressed exactly the way they are in the movie. One girl with their rifles, the other one standing with their rifles. Well, they were a bad actor, I am.
Well, I think there is one more thing you could tell us, Michael, which is that with the reception here tonight and in Venice, and the very good press that's come out over the last couple of weeks about the restoration, I'm wondering if you may feel that you're at a place now where we might see in the not-too-distant future a new Michael Cimino film, because the world is certainly overdue for one.
Yes!
It won't be for lack of trying.
Well, I wanna thank everyone at MGM Park Circus, the Criterion Collection, who helped to make tonight possible, and most of all, Kris Kristofferson and Michael Cimino for being here with us.